Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome to X4 Foundations. This is my first impressions of the game after having played it for around about 16 hours now. So do keep in mind that this is an extremely in-depth game, so even after all that time I'm barely scratching the surface, so this certainly isn't a full-on review. But I will tell you my thoughts and feelings on the game as it stands right now. So the first thing I really want to get out the way is whether or not the game is buggy and what is performance like. So Egosoft have had some problems in the past with a lot of bugs and a lot of other issues when release day comes and X3 and X Rebirth. But here Egosoft have really outdone themselves. X4 Foundations runs absolutely flawlessly, more or less, and I've actually live streamed it for about 10 hours and faced very few problems, certainly no game breaking ones, and I think I had maybe 2 crashes within that time. Though that could have been down to my streaming software rather than the game itself. In terms of performance, I get anywhere between 30 to 50 frames a second inside a station, depending on what's actually going on there and what's in the surrounding environment, and in the depth of space I range between 60 to 90 plus frames a second. Now this of course is usually while streaming, so we have to factor that in, and when not streaming the frame rates are generally quite a bit higher. For my system specs, I run an i7 6700K and a GTX 980 Ti. So one of the things you're going to notice more or less straight away with X4 is the excellent system map. From here you can do almost everything. It's a full management system, not just a map. And here we're zoomed in very close on my current location, which of course is a station. I'm docked here and you get that lovely schematic view of the station, and as you zoom out you can see each individual sector until you can see every single sector. Now there are over 50 sectors to discover and each of them is pretty darn large. Now within inside each sector you can see there's some black space as well as some grey space. The grey represents fog of war, areas I haven't discovered. The black are areas I've actually fully explored. Now as this is a management system you can remote look at all the areas of the game, whether you want to trade or whether you just want to buy ships. This is a wharf station, so it sells small and medium ships. Paranid in this particular case, and we can simply scroll through or select through the menus what type of ship we actually want to purchase, and we can actually remotely purchase these as well. And let's have a look at some of the medium ships. Each ship serves a different function. Some are miners, some are trading ships, some are combat ships, and some are scouts. And that's not even mentioning the capital ships, which we'll have a look at a little bit further in. Now you can also fully modify your ships and outfit them from the shipyard. You can do that in a number of ways. One of the ways of doing it is to right click on each individual module and select which module you want to outfit in there. The ones here with a red star or a red icon to the right indicate ones that need a license to purchase. Otherwise we're free to choose which type of module we want as long as we can afford it. And you can see that the ship's designs are actually modular, so they will change in appearance depending on what type of modules you actually fit. Now if you don't want to right click on the modules, you can choose the module menus to the left here, and they all show the stats down at the bottom on the middle of the menu, and this will give you everything you need to know about each individual module. Its power, its strength, its speed, depending on what type of module you're actually looking at. Now there's also preset loadouts in case you don't want to outfit each ship individually, and these go from bare minimal loadouts all the way up to fully maxed loadouts, and the price will vary accordingly. And generally speaking, this makes the process much quicker if you're not too worried about customizing the ships specifically. So small and medium ships are found at station wharfs, but the larger ships are found at shipyards. These range in large to extra large in size, and there's quite a lot of difference. Again, as with small to medium ships, each alien race will have a distinct different visual style. And further into the video we'll get a sense of the scale of just how big some of these ships actually are. Now I found the outfitting to be absolutely flawless. It works very nice. You can find all the information you want. The modular design is brilliant, to be perfectly honest, and well, you can outfit a ship very quickly. All the information you need is right there in front of you, and that actually means that outfitting isn't laborious in this game. You can actually get right on and outfit many ships very quickly and get on with things. In addition to owning multiple ships, you can also own space stations. These again can also be fully customized, and they do have a modular design to them. You simply drag and drop how you want the station to be constructed. Now, this isn't an area I've had a lot of experience with just yet, because it requires a lot of money. So building space stations and all the rest of the activities that come with it will be something I'll look at in a future video, but it does look to have a huge amount of depth to it, a very important part of the game then. Just to be clear for people who've never played the X series before, in that these games you not only own the stations, but you can hire crew for them, and you can set specific roles for them. So in short, you can own entire fleets of ships, entire empires of space stations. X4 is very much a management game, about managing your empire. It's not just about flying ships, but that said, flying ships is something it does very, very well. And that really comes down to the flight model. This is something you'll notice as soon as you undock your first ship. The ships have a lot of weight to them. This depends on the size and style of the ship, of course. Some feel lighter than others, but they're not just drifting around. You can actually feel the ship's weight behind the controls. The ships also have a velocity and momentum, and these play an important part in how you actually move your ship about. Whilst the game does come with a flight assist mode to help you with flying your ship, you can also disable this and make full use of the Newtonian mechanics that the flight model is based on. So all in all then, while this certainly isn't a flight sim, the flying of the ships does have a very nice feel to it, and you'll feel like you're actually piloting ships. Now, something many people often wonder about when it comes to space games is how do you travel around the galaxy? How do you travel around the star systems? Basically, does it take you a long time, or is it pretty convenient? Now, X4 manages this in a number of ways. Firstly, it has a high-speed travel lanes that you can see here. This is basically a highway that extends around the various sectors of the galaxy or the game world, and you just drop in here on these roads. They'll carry you where you need to go to, and you can drop out at any moment along the way. And for those of you that played X Rebirth, don't worry, there's no mini-games in X4 travel. The other ways of travelling around are through jump gates, through acceleration gates, as well as through anomalies, which can make for a rather nice surprise. There's also another form of travel called fast mode. This is an additional HUD mode of your ship, one of 4 in fact, and fast mode actually accelerates you up very, very fast depending on the type of engines you've got fitted. By default in this particular ship, which was one of the start ships, it was 2,400 meters per second, and with a very small upgrade I got that pretty close to 4,000 meters per second. You can fully pilot your ship during fast travel, so there's that as well. Now, here is a second mode for your new HUD. With this activated then, the stations or any other close objects are silhouetted with an overlay here, and essentially what this allows you to do is discover hidden things. This could be data leaks or hidden objects, and when you actually locate them or when you get close to them, they'll come up as strange sounds, radio static or high-pitched whines, sometimes radio chatter. You need then to visually zero in on them, get closer to the signal strength, and when you discover it, you'll actually be rewarded. Sometimes with data, sometimes with the blueprints for things to craft, and at other times it could be a mission. The third HUD mode is a long-range scan. Now this allows you to detect stations far off in the distance, unknown objects, many other things, and one in specific that you may be interested in are anomalies like this one here. Now I'm up close to it already, but when you perform the pulse scan, what happens is the wave goes out and you get those sort of orb flashing, those circular flashings indicating where things are to find. The purple ones are for anomalies, white ones are for space stations and other objects, and you can see these now appear as question marks on the sector map. So if we so choose, we could fly over to those question marks and see what they're all about, but for the meantime, we're more interested in the anomaly here. Now, everything is context sensitive. When you're on the galaxy map or on the sector map, you can simply right-click and choose a function. In this case, I right-clicked on my ship icon and deployed a satellite. This will essentially act as a bookmark on your sector map. You'll be able to see it both in real space as well as on the map and head back to locations that you may want to revisit. As for the anomalies themselves, well, these are basically like wormholes. You fly through them, you need to go at some speed, otherwise they repel you. And they transport you to other sectors. You never really know where you're going to end up. But one thing's good, they are there on the other end, so you can return. Now, talking of different sectors, one thing you will notice as you play the game is that there's distinct visual styles as you travel around. So whether you're up near a space station or some more remote locations, most of the areas can be very stunning indeed. and nearly all of them reflect scale. And talking of scale, that was something I mentioned earlier with the sense of, with the subject of larger capital ships and freighters and other such things. All of the large ships you can actually dock at, whether you own them or not. You just simply request docking permission and you can land on them much as you would a space station. The great thing about this is that once you leave your ship and you're docked on another ship, a larger one, the ship still flies around and it will transport you to wherever its destination is. Basically, all the ships within X4 have their own functions. They're not just there for the sake of it, they will go about their business, whether that's trading, whether that's patrolling, whether it's mining, or whether it's combat focus. And this goes for large ships, it goes for stations, and it goes for all small ships. And this really is something that adds immense life to the game. Not just the fact you can walk aboard all the ships here and even go to their bridges, but the fact that the entire X galaxy just seems to be very much alive. Everyone's going around their own activity, and this just adds immensely to the overall game. Now, as the X4 series is all about empire building, well, that means you soon take your place amongst all of these empires. You can conquer your way across the galaxy through trade, through combat, and through many other things. Of course, as I'm still in the early stages of the game, I still haven't tried any of these aspects just yet, but be sure to keep an eye on the YouTube channel because I'll be making many videos and we'll be able to report back on all that later on. Same goes for crafting, which is very much down to your personal inventory. There's two inventories, by the way. There's the inventory you carry around in your cargo ships and the inventory that you collect in your own avatar's pockets, basically. These are the things that you can use for selling. You can trade them at the broker here, or you can actually craft them into more useful and valuable components. In short then, walking around is neither forced on you nor essential to do absolutely everything. All the important things that are ship related you can do from your ship, or you can do remotely from the galaxy map, or rather the sector map I should say. Now what that means is all the activities, or many of the activities you can get involved in whilst walking around, are very personal focused. They're to do with your avatar and your character. But that's not to say that you don't have other things to do whilst walking around. You can of course still visit showrooms and purchase ships from there, and in fact some missions will even require you to walk around the stations and get involved with various activities around the stations. The game also features full-on EVA activity. Some missions may require you to leave your ship whilst in space and use the EVA module. And this is one way you can actually repair your ship's hull. Leaving the ship and firing your repair beam at the vehicle will actually repair it. And some fun things can happen here. One time I actually left the ship and got attacked whilst I was outside it. A raiding party decided that was a perfect moment to actually try and destroy my ship. So, talking about combat then, what is it actually like within X4? Now, the X series has never been about combat. It's not really a space combat game, but it is here, and I'd say actually it's functional at best. It's by no means bad, and you can have a lot of fun with it for sure. And do keep in mind that my playtime with this is still fairly limited. I haven't tried combat with the larger ships or the more combat-focused weapons, but the AI is by no means the smartest cookie out there. But do keep in mind that combat is just one aspect of the game, and there are indeed many aspects to X4, so I wouldn't mark this down too bad when it comes to combat, but I would say it's not really its primary focus. That said, I may revise this opinion slightly later on once I've had some more hours and had some heavy combat. Until then, we'll have to see. But basically, there's two ways of shooting your weapons here, the ones in the smaller ships at least. You've got cursor fire, where the weapon actually follows where your cursor is pointing, it's gimbaled, and you've got bore sight firing, where the weapon fires towards the centre of the ship's sight. But I will also add that combat is by no means a small thing. There's plenty of weapons to be chosen from, plenty of shields, and many other different modules besides. And as you're travelling around, you'll often find the NPCs getting involved in epic space combat wars. Many ships often involved in these. They look spectacular, and you can actually even remotely view these on the sector map, where all the ships show up as unique contacts. They fly around each other, swarming each other, and you can even see some of the weapons on the map. So, as I mentioned early on, this is by no means a full review of the game. There's far too much to cover in the amount of time that I've actually had with it. One of the things I do briefly want to show, though, is trading. Now, there's a number of ways of getting involved in trading. You can fly around yourself from station to station and purchase goods, and then find a location to sell them at. Or you can send your ships remotely to go and do this for you, as long as you've got the right type of ship and as long as they've got a crew. Now, finding things is very easy. Simply go to the galaxy map and there's an extensive filter system here. You can actually use it to find anything. Type in trading, for example, and you can find a trading station. But if it's commodities you want, then go to the trading filter, switch them on, and it will tell you all the commodities that you're actually aware of in the sectors here. You can see the purchase price and you can see the seller price. And you can actually click on any one of these. So if we click on energy cells, for example, and then move our way around the sector map, what we'd see is all the stations that are both buying and selling energy cells. And we'll get the prices for these. Now, these prices might not necessarily be up to date if you haven't visited the station for a while, but you can leave a satellite near one of these stations and you'll then get up-to-date information. So you can take full advantage of this system. For example, right here, one of my ships, a Magpie, which is a miner, has got an entire haul of ice. So we simply search for ice, where are the stations that are selling on it. We can click on them, choose the ship that we want to actually go to this station and trade, and tell that ship how many units of that particular object or commodity that we actually want to sell there. Very, very easy, very, very flexible system. And then we can see our ship actually going out on that particular journey. If we double click on it on the sector map, get rid of the filters there so they're not in the way, and you can see the ship going out there to fulfill the orders that I've just given it. Now, in case you're wondering whether or not X4 is well, an overwhelming beast, it can actually be very hard to get into. It took me a good hour and a half to 2 hours to actually get to grips with. It does come with a few tutorials. In fact, these tutorials are pretty extensive. Unlike many other X games, it will walk you through many of the actions that you need to do and directly tell you what buttons you need to press and where you need to go to achieve a particular objective. And this is a really, really nice touch and helps no end. But even still, there are a few bits that are not particularly intuitive, and I found myself scrambling around trying to figure out what was what, despite the fact that sometimes that particular thing I was searching for was right in front of me. It was just there in such a way that it wasn't immediately obvious. And that really is the thing that I've found about X4. Sometimes things aren't intuitive, sometimes things don't make immediate sense. But once you come to an understanding of X4's peculiarities and exactly how things work, then everything really does make sense. It has some very powerful systems indeed. Now, there's a few other subjects I'd like to touch on before we wrap up here. The game does have SATA or CETA for everyone who has played the previous series. Some games have had this, some games haven't. But basically, it's a time acceleration functionality. This comes very handy when playing space games and the immense travel distances. It's also very, very handy with the long-term trade-in. Now, it's not a device that comes standard fitted to the ships. It's something you've got to fit later on in the game. But basically, it's the fourth mode to the new HUD system for your cockpit. The game also supports HOTAS and gamepads. There's no planetary landing for those that may be wondering, and unfortunately there's no VR support, although that's something that may come further down the line, but quite probably if so, it will be a separate release. So all in all then, what are my final thoughts for X4 Foundations after about 10 to 15 hours of playing it? They are that this is an immensely complex game, a game with a lot of depth, that if you like this sort of game will last you many hundreds, if not thousands of hours. The build that I've played here, which was a pre-release build but very, very close to the final version, is absolutely flawless in its execution. There's been just a few minor bugs, most of these are around the autopilot, which by the way, the autopilot will take you everywhere you need to go. You can set it to take you to mission destinations or to any destination that you actually plot. That was a thing that did have a few bugs in it, sometimes taking me to the wrong sort of area or just causing me to crash my ship, but overall it was very, very minor and only happened few and far between. And during 10 hours of live stream, the game was very stable and had some very, very nice smooth performance, some of which was impacted by my live streaming, as some of you may have noticed, and I think there was just one crash to desktop which came up right at the end of a 5-hour play session. As for the game itself, it's something I'm going to be playing a huge amount of. Not just because it's a space game, but because so far it's a very, very good space game. In fact, for a space game, it's got absolutely everything I want. And this may be despite the fact that it's not got multiplayer. Sometimes multiplayer space games have to make far too many concessions. X4 doesn't have to make any of those, allowing it to be very much a single-player focused game. If you enjoy space games then, especially ones with a heavy focus on trade and empire building, then X4 is more likely for you. It's certainly something I'm very much enjoying myself. There's of course a lot of systems that I've barely scratched, and those will be something I've focused on in future videos. But for now, this is where we're going to leave it. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.